Don't forget that you're listening to Nightmare. I previously mentioned that I worked night shifts for a while in different metro stations and lines. Well, while I was at Boulevard Puerto Aéreo station on line 1, around 2:50 in the morning, I was sitting on the platform heading toward Observatorio. It was very empty because all the companies had finished their work for the week. In that station below the platform stairs, they were building what are now storage rooms for cleaning staff. I went in to organize my backpack, and while I was doing that, I started hearing the laughter of children. It sounded like they were playing tag, and through the small gaps, you could even see the shadows of their feet. I stayed alert, wondering who they could be with, since no one is allowed in at that hour. And I repeat, it was emptier than usual. So I waited for them to come closer again. The laughter and footsteps grew louder, and I quickly got out. It didn't take me long because there was no door, and at that very moment, everything went completely silent. I walked around outside for a bit and saw no one, not even the police officers who had earlier asked for my ID to let me stay there. After that, I stayed more alert, in case I could spot something that would explain it. As I walked, the metal sheets near the lights began to rattle loudly, and again I could hear footsteps in the distance, but no one was there. I recently remembered that experience because I was working alone in a certain area at Flag Station on the same line. Some people warned me that if I saw a girl around 11 years old, I should hide or run because something bad had happened to a coworker after he saw her. He even had to quit his job. I hope you enjoy Metro stories because many of them are real. What I've just told you is nothing compared to other paranormal experiences we had there, which I can't share just yet, but I hope to soon. Have a very good night, and I hope you're all doing well. I'd like to tell an anecdote that happened to a friend of my dad's named Mario. Both of them were taxi drivers. One day, my dad had to switch shifts with the man I just mentioned, his friend, who chose to work the night shift. He said it was around 2:30 on a cold October night back in 2011. Mario was getting frustrated as he hadn't picked up a single passenger in over 2 hours. Feeling discouraged, he headed downtown near a bus terminal where a tall man asked for a ride. He pulled over, and the man got into the passenger seat. He greeted him and asked to be taken to the nearest taco stand. Mario agreed and started driving toward a spot about 2 kilometers away, which was still open. Once they arrived, the man invited Mario to get out and eat with him. Mario refused, but the man kept insisting. Eventually, Mario agreed, though he felt a bit embarrassed. He said they talked for a long while, drinking sodas and enjoying the delicious tacos being made at the stand. When they finished eating, the man paid and headed back to the taxi. There, he asked Mario to take him to the cemetery to visit a relative. Mario agreed, though he found it odd, knowing full well the cemetery would be closed at that hour. Nevertheless, he accepted. He wasn't even planning to charge him for the ride since the man had treated him to dinner. After about a 20-minute drive, they arrived at the cemetery, which was in a remote part of the city. The man got out of the car and said, "This is where I get off. Thank you very much. Rest assured you can count on me if you ever need anything." He reached out to shake Mario's hand and paid him for the ride. Mario refused to take the money, but the man insisted again. In the moment Mario turned to put the money in his wallet, just seconds later when he looked back, the man was gone. There was absolutely no one there. Surprised, Mario got out of the taxi and saw that the cemetery gate was still padlocked. He recalled not hearing any footsteps or anything like that and instantly knew it had been a supernatural entity. He said a Lord's Prayer, got back in his car, and left the place. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, YouTube community. I want to share with you an experience my cousin had many years ago in our grandparents' hometown. He admits that, until recently, just remembering the event would give him chills. For my part, I had already heard the story, but remained skeptical until he told it to me himself. I'll try to transcribe that conversation without altering too many details, except for the names of those involved. Without further ado, here is his story. In the year 1985, if he remembers correctly, his family was living in the town where our paternal grandparents were from. Back then, he and my brothers didn't have many cousins, compared to how many would come later. Our uncles used to spoil us by giving us what we called domingo, a small weekly allowance. So weekends were always something to look forward to. Just another typical weekend. My cousin and his older brother Angel were at our grandparents' house enjoying the visit. From the yard, they saw storm clouds approaching from the distance. In that town, rain usually comes down hard, so they decided to say their goodbyes and head home before it started. Our grandparents made the sign of the cross over them and they kissed their hands as was the custom. However, just as they were saying goodbye to one last uncle, they found out there would be a wedding at the house of some acquaintances, and that uncle had been invited. Since those acquaintances had children their age, the brothers saw the party as the perfect chance to have some fun and maybe still get their domingo. They called their mom and asked for permission. Their mother agreed on the condition that they not take too long, since she would be waiting for them at the corner of their house with their two younger siblings. Everything went normally during the party. After receiving their domingo, they got ready to head home. However, one of Angel's friends spotted him in the crowd and called him over. Both of them went to talk to him, and between the chatting and the lively atmosphere, they completely lost track of time. That's when the rain started falling, with an intensity they had never seen before. My cousin swears he has never seen another storm like it. Heavy rain with hail, fierce wind, and a darkness so thick it seemed like a warning of something dreadful. The party came to a halt. The guests ran for cover wherever they could. Slowly, the rain began to ease, thanks to one of those calculator wristwatches that were very popular at the time. They realized the time. It was already 10 p.m. Angel, with a serious voice, said, "Let's go, man. Mom's going to be worried and she's going to yell at us." They left the party with the rain still falling on them. At that time, the streets in the town weren't paved, and the streetlights barely lit the ground below them, giving everything a much more eerie appearance. My cousin remembered that the path to their house was lined with trees and was practically impassable at night. He suggested going back to their grandparents' house since it was closer, but Angel refused outright. So my cousin said, "On the count of 3, we run. I'll go to Grandma and Grandpa's, and you go home." And so they did. My cousin ran with all his might. Midway down the road, right by what is now one of his cousin's houses, something unthinkable happened. A woman in white came out of an alley wearing a long, torn dress. She made no sound at all, only the wind moved her long black hair, which completely covered her face. That's when he noticed something impossible. The figure had no feet and cast no shadow. It was as if she were floating in the air. Everything around him seemed to stop. Time, sound, the feeling of cold and rain, all of it disappeared. He was frozen in place, staring at that ghostly figure, unable to move or even scream. He doesn't remember how long he stood there like that, but when he came to, he found himself back on the road he had come from, disoriented and shaking. That's when one of our cousin's grandmothers found him. Seeing him in that state, she began asking questions, but he could barely speak. He was so pale and shaken that the woman, realizing something serious had happened, offered to walk him back to our grandparents' house. At first, they tried to go back through the same alley, but when she noticed how terrified he became, she understood something terrible had occurred there. She decided to go around the entire block and accompanied him all the way to the door. When they arrived, his grandparents received him with worry and let him sleep with them that night. The next morning, his aunt, who lived right on the corner of the alley where the woman had appeared, came over to take the fright out of him, as the cleansing rituals are known in the village. That aunt was well-versed in healing practices and spiritual rituals. She performed a traditional cleansing using herbs, prayers, and blessings. Once she was done, his grandmother took him back home, where his mother was waiting, ready to scold him. But after hearing what had happened, her expression completely changed. Though she didn't show fear, the only thing she managed to say was, "See, that's what you get for not listening." After that, he never disobeyed a similar instruction again. He never walked through that alley again, nor did he ever walk alone at night in the village. And even though many years have passed, he says he'll never forget what he saw that night, because what he witnessed wasn't human. Fortunately, nothing like that ever happened to him again, and he hopes it never does.
I've never told this to anyone outside my family, but after so many years, I feel like I need to get it off my chest. It all happened during a camping trip, one of those that are supposed to be full of laughter, stories around the fire, and endless hikes. But that time something was different. Something felt off from the beginning, even if no one wanted to admit it. It was a remote place, surrounded by dense forest and hills. There was barely any signal, and nightfall came with a crushing silence, broken only by the creak of branches or the distant call of some nocturnal bird. The tents were lined up in a clearing, right at the edge of the trees. That's where it happened. The first night was quiet, more or less normal. But on the second night, the whispers began. At first I thought it was my imagination, soft voices, almost imperceptible, coming from the woods. Sometimes I thought I could make out words, like someone calling my name. I asked the others if they'd heard it, but they either denied it or made fun of me. So I let it go. Until one night, one of the campers disappeared. We woke up and his sleeping bag was empty. We thought he might have gone to the bathroom or something, but hours passed and he didn't come back. We searched everywhere, calling, shouting, walking the trails, nothing, just silence, and the disturbing feeling that something was watching us from the woods. That same day, one of the adults went down to the nearest town to get help. The rest of us stayed with the other counsellors, trying to stay calm, but the air felt heavy, tense, like even the atmosphere was weighed down. That night, no one really slept. I stayed up, watching the edge of the forest. That's when I saw it, a figure, standing just inside the trees. It didn't move, it was just there, tall, dark, human-shaped, but wrong, like something trying to imitate a person and failing at it. I wanted to wake someone up, but I couldn't move. I was frozen in fear. The figure took a step forward and I saw its face. It had no eyes, just two deep hollows, like they were absorbing all the light. When I felt like I was about to scream, I blinked, and it was gone. The next day, the missing boy returned. He was covered in mud, scratched up, his clothes torn. He didn't remember anything. He just kept saying he had followed a voice, that someone had called to him from the forest, and when he wanted to come back, he didn't know how. He cried like a little kid, even though he was older. He never spoke of it again. The camp was cancelled that same day. They took us back as quickly as they could. No one wanted to talk about what happened, but we all knew something strange had occurred. We were terrified. We didn't want to go back. An hour later, we were supposed to start a game, but we stayed with one of the counsellors the whole time. We weren't planning on being alone. Then one of them shouted, a child had gone missing. He had been to the camp before. He was about 9 or 10. We stopped everything and sent the others to the dining hall. The counsellors and a few of us went into the woods to look for him. It's not a big forest, but after an hour, we had nothing. Then someone yelled. The boy had been found, crying his heart out in the bathrooms. We knew him well. He was one of those kids who acts tough, one of the bravest. But he was shattered. He said he had gotten separated from the group, and a white figure, no taller than a meter, had chased him through the woods. We froze. That was exactly what another girl had seen days earlier, a small, glowing figure. But only the counsellors knew that story. There was no way the kid could have known. That night, we were told that strange things were common in that area, that we weren't the first. Some spoke of ghosts, others even stranger things. Days later, we tried to be brave. We decided to enter the forest during the day to look for answers. We didn't last 10 minutes. The silence was unnatural. We came back without saying a word. That was the last time I ever went there. I never returned. And when night falls and everything goes quiet, I can still hear those distant voices, as if the forest is reminding me that it's still there, waiting. My aunt also experienced something she's never been able to forget. After graduating and moving to a new place, everything seemed fine, at first. But then, little things began to happen. Toys that turned on by themselves, voices from down the hall, the microwave activating for no reason. It always happened when she was alone with the kids. One night, while she was watching her children, a lullaby started playing in the middle of the night. It was coming from the computer they used to help the baby sleep. The strange part? The tab was closed. No one had touched it. My aunt thought it might be a ghost. Her husband thought maybe it was a burglar. But the house was locked and nothing was out of place. Months later, a woman who visited the house said she saw a little angel near her. She asked if she had lost a child. My aunt, surprised, confessed that she had. Before having her first child, she had lost a pregnancy. She had never told anyone. The woman assured her that this little spirit only came to visit them, to make sure her family was okay. Years later, something else happened. One morning after leaving the bathroom, my aunt saw a child standing in front of her. It wasn't one of her children, it was bigger. She thought about the baby that never was. She didn't say anything. She just went about her routine and left for work. A few nights later, her daughter went downstairs for a glass of water. She screamed loudly, "Mom!" When my aunt rushed down, the girl was coming up, pale and trembling. She said there was a man downstairs, a very big one like a grandfather, and that man had said, "I have to go with you now." Days later, while they were playing in the living room, the girl pointed to nothing and said, "There's the man, Mom. He's all in black." My aunt didn't see anything. She hugged her daughter and took her to the kitchen. She asked her to tell the man that this was their house and he couldn't hurt them. The girl simply replied, "No, Mom, he's already gone." The next day, my aunt found a handprint on the bathroom mirror. It didn't match any of the hands in the house. She took a picture and showed it to her daughter's therapist, who was also somewhat sensitive. She said that handprint was a warning, that my aunt needed to pay more attention to her children because they could sense things adults couldn't see. Since then, they began praying every night, going to church, and talking to their children about what they felt. The paranormal events stopped manifesting so clearly, but my aunt still hears something moving downstairs at night, something that never leaves.